taken. So the event will be broadcasted outside in the 15th floor auditorium. Investment Forum with the presence of the Ministry of Investment from the Saudi Arabia, Mr. Khalid Al-Falih. Right now, we'd like to announce the arrival of the Brazilian Vice President and Ministry of Development, Industry, Commerce and Services, Mr. Geraldo Alckmin, together with the Governor of the State of São Paulo, Mr. Tarcísio de Freitas, the President of IESP, Mr. Josué Gomes da Silva, and the Ministry of Investments of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Mr. Khalid Al-Falih. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now watch the opening video.
As Brazil and Saudi Arabia continue to grow and diversify their economies, reach their net zero targets, and build resilience across strategic sectors, there are many lessons they can share and synergies for them to harness. As the world's third largest agricultural producer and home to one of the globe's largest food companies, Brazil is key to Saudi Arabia's food security strategy. The country has produced world-class companies in sectors ranging from construction and mining to financial services and aviation, opening trade and investment opportunities with Saudi Arabia across a wide range of sectors. And Saudi Arabia's giga projects such as NEO, driven by technology, innovation, and sustainability, will revolutionize how the world will live, work, play, and produce. Brazil and Saudi Arabia are both clean energy pioneers with tremendous potential as green hydrogen producers. They are both home to critical metals and minerals for advanced industry and the energy transition. through PPCD and the Saudi Green Initiative. They are united in the goal of mitigating climate change. And as G20 companies with large and growing consumer markets, they are the logical choice for global supply chain and business gateways to the respective regions. From energy and services to chemicals and advanced manufacturing, Saudi Arabia and Brazil have shared aspirations and decades of strong collaboration that we look forward to deepening and expanding today at the Brazil-Saudi Investment Forum.
Senhoras e senhores,
Ladies and gentlemen, the goal of this forum is to promote investments and explore potential partnerships in different sectors in the bilateral relationship between Brazil and Saudi Arabia. This event was organized by FIESP in partnership with the Minister of Investments of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. We would like to invite to join us on stage Mr. Geraldo Alckmin, Vice President and Minister of Development, Industry, Commerce and Services. Mr. Tarcísio de Freitas, the Governor of the State of São Paulo. Mr. Josué Gomes da Silva, the President of FIESP. Mr. Khalid Al-Faleh, Minister of Investments in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Mr. Faisal Ghulan, Ambassador for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in Brazil. Mr. Ricardo Nunes, the Mayor on the City of São Paulo. Mr. Robson Braga de Andrade, the President of the Brazilian National Confederation of Industry. And Mr. Jorge Viana, the President of Apex Brazil. We would like to invite the President of FIESP, Mr. Josué Gomes da Silva, to welcome us all to the event. Good morning, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. I would like first to greet the Vice President and Minister of Development, Industry, Commerce and Services, Mr. Geraldo Alckmin. I also would like to greet Governor of the State of São Paulo, Mr. Tarcísio de Freitas, His Excellency, the Minister of Investments in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Mr. Khalid Al-Faleh, the Ambassador for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in Brazil, Mr. Faisal Ghulan, the Mayor of the City of São Paulo, Mr. Ricardo Nunes, and our dear friend, Mr. Robson Braga de Andrade, the President of the Brazilian National Confederation of Industry, our dear friend and President of Apex Brazil, Mr. Jorge Viana. I also would like to greet all of you, all the members of the official delegation from Saudi Arabia, different presidents from the trade unions connected to FIESP, all the directors and members of FIESP and CIESP, all the Brazilian businessmen and women, ladies and gentlemen from the press, and ladies and gentlemen here with us today. It is a great honor to welcome this delegation from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia today, a day when we start the Saudi-Brazil Investment Forum. As shown in the opening video, the potential that both countries have are endless. Brazil can offer, and actually already offers, food security not only to the region, but as well as the world. Brazil is a country that today produces 330 million tons of grains, with a potential of expanding this agricultural capacity without deforesting a single hectare, just by making the conversion of less productive pasture areas into more productive areas, even combining agriculture with livestock activities. Brazil, just like Saudi Arabia, can help the world when it comes to energy security. Both countries are great producers of hydrocarbonate products, but with a great potential of renewable energy sources as well. And the production of green hydrogen today is becoming a choice of energy to the world. So Brazil and Saudi Arabia can be great contributors of that change. Brazil is a country that is open to foreign investments, and Brazil is a country that needs to attract capital for the development of our infrastructure and for the development of our transformation industry and several other sectors. And Saudi Arabia is searching to do partner investments with partnerships between Saudi and Brazilian companies, offering as well a region that is quite strong so Brazilian companies can operate there. After all, today, the region, which is led by Saudi Arabia, represents a GDP of $6 trillion with a population of 340 million inhabitants. So the opportunities are endless, and it is a joy for this forum and for this workday, or the 2 or 3 workdays that we have ahead of us between the Saudi delegation and Brazil, start here at Fiesp, the home of the São Paulo industry and the home of Brazilian industry. Thank you very much for being with us, and rest assured that the next 2 or 3 days will be very productive for us all. Thank you very much. We would like to invite Mr. Faisal Gulem, the ambassador for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in Brazil.
President Geraldo Alckmin, Your Excellency, Governor Tarcísio de Freitas, Your Excellency Minister Khalid Al-Faleh, Your Excellency Mayor Ricardo Nunes, Mr. President of FAESP, distinguished participants on the stage and distinguished audience, it is my privilege to address this prominent gathering as we convene at the commencement of this Brazilian-Saudi Forum, potentially the first of its kind. It is a momentous occasion emphasizing the deep-rooted significance of the diplomatic relationship between Brazil and Saudi Arabia, which has thrived for the past 55 years. In the economic aspect, Brazil and Saudi Arabia already share a robust trade relationship, with Saudi Arabia holding the position of being the second biggest importer of Brazilian products in the Arab world. Additionally, among the Arab countries, Saudi Arabia stands as the largest exporter to Brazil. The trade exchange between the two countries in 2022 amounted to more than $8 billion. However, the focus of this forum on investment indicates the two countries' aim for a more prosperous and enduring business partnership. The forum will surely provide us with a remarkable platform to exchange ideas, share insights, and identify new avenues for collaboration across various sectors. As an ambassador, It is with great privilege that I contemplate the role our embassy played in materializing this event. Allow me to extend my deepest gratitude to all Saudi, Brazilian, governmental, and private parties involved, whose efforts and commitments have brought us together today. Shukran, obrigado.
Right now, we are going to hear from Mr. Ricardo Nunes, the mayor of São Paulo. Good morning, everyone. I would like to first greet our friend Geraldo Alckmin, our governor. It is a great pleasure and satisfaction to see our vice president again, and of course, who is also the Ministry of Development, Industry and Services. A dear friend and partner, Mr. Tarcísio Freitas, the governor of the state of São Paulo, a great partner of our government, who has enabled us to do great advancements in our public policies. I also like to thank him for the work that he has been developing, but especially for his partnership and friendship. I'd like to greet Mr. Khalid Al Faleh, the Minister of Investments of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And in doing so, I would like to just add a quick comment, Mr. Minister, on the pleasure that we had and the meeting, the pleasure that I had in listening to you when you talked about sustainability, when you talked about food security and the environment. So for me, that was a very important thing to learn about how these topics are important for Saudi Arabia. I'd like to greet Mr. Faisal Gulan, the ambassador for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in Brazil. Also a dear friend, Mr. José Gomes, the president of Fiesp, who has been developing a great work with his team. Our dear Robson Braga, the president of the Brazilian National Confederation of Industry. Mr. Jorge Viana, the president of Apex Brazil. And I also like to greet the official and commercial delegation from Saudi Arabia, business people, and friends from the press. The only Brazilian city in the rank of City of the Futures from the Financial Times ranking is the city of São Paulo. And we have a special focus on technology and innovation with more than 3,000 startup companies. Between 2020 and 2023, we have advanced 4 positions in the global startup rank, and we are the only city in Latin America in the top 30. Minister, part of your delegation is going to stay here, but part of your delegation is also going to other countries. But I would like to leave these advancements that our city has made on the record. And I think this audience is a statement of that. So you have this attention of investment, of course, in the whole country, but especially in the driving force of this country, the city of São Paulo.
The planning of the City Hall is for the full development of the city in different areas, creating a business environment that is more attractive for global partners. This investment forum between Brazil and Saudi Arabia reinforces the connection of both countries and open new perspectives so they can grow together. With the ideal that São Paulo, as its own call, and the work performed by the city administration has contributed so much. It's not necessary to talk about the potential of our country, Brazil. Everybody knows it. But to finish my talk, I would like to highlight a very important point of an essential data that will for sure add on to the investments of Saudi Arabia, and I'm talking on behalf of the city of São Paulo, the state of São Paulo. An essential data. From 2021 on, we had 43,000 companies that transferred business to the city of São Paulo. From 2021 until today, we had the opening of 341,000 companies. This is an essential action to generate revenue and employment. Last years, we had a positive balance of 187 job spots. And taking into account what was said a couple of minutes ago by the Minister of Saudi Arabia about the environment and sustainability, this is a very important number. Out of the 3 pillars that I've heard is concern of Saudi Arabia, the economic aspect, the economic development, Mr. Geraldo Alckmin, something that we always did here and has generated all these points. The second pillar, that is also sustainability. We went from 48% of green coverage, reaching 54.14 of forest coverage. And we are working hard with different points concerning the environment. And the third pillar, the social aspect, to serve the poor people, generating job opportunities, and serve the most vulnerable part of the population. For what I've seen from what was said by the ambassador here, and what is part of Fiesp, through Josué, we also have the governor and vice president here of Brazil, and also all of you at the audience. We are here in an event receiving Saudi Arabia with everything that we believe on and what we fight for. So I'm positive that this meeting will be a huge success and will strengthen even more all relationships between São Paulo, the city of São Paulo, the state of São Paulo, and Brazil, on the benefit of the Brazilian population. Thank you very much, and I wish you all the best. And for his greeting, we invite Khaled Al-Falih, the Minister of Investment from Saudi Arabia.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, bon dia, good morning, assalamu alaikum. It is an honor and a pleasure for me and my delegation and my colleagues to be here in Brazil, but in particular in the beating heart of the Brazilian economy, Sao Paulo, and to have this event graced by the presence of His Excellency, the Vice President. So on behalf of the government of Saudi Arabia, let me express our sincere gratitude to their Excellencies, Vice President and Minister Geraldo Alckmin, Governor Tarcísio de Freitas, and Mayor Ricardo Nunes of Sao Paulo, Brazil's federal government. Let me also thank and recognize the Federation of Industries of the State of Sao Paulo, Fiesp, and its president, Jose Gomes de Silva, for hosting us today. as well as the president of Apex, and welcome and thank all of the business leaders in Brazil for being here today in such large numbers. Ladies and gentlemen, despite the geographic distance between us, Brazil and Saudi Arabia, two proud G20 members and major energy producers, as already mentioned, are well positioned to be strategic partners, being the undisputed economic leaders of our respective regions. Our bilateral diplomatic relations extend almost 55 years in time. Saudi Arabia is Brazil's leading trade partner in the MENA region, following an impressive growth of 44% between 22 and 21. And for us to take the next steps in deepening that strategic partnership, today, as we meet in this great event in Sao Paulo, we want to develop a strong investment partnership as well to complement what is already happening in trade. I am therefore particularly pleased that we will soon be marking the exchange of 26 MOUs in key strategic sectors of importance that align with and will feed into many of the challenges and opportunities we see faced by our two respective countries, by our two respective regions, and indeed by the global economy today. We're very awed by and wish to congratulate Brazil on your country's impressive economic performance that includes fast growth in terms of GDP over the last 2 years, a strong credit rating that has been raised, and strong FDI flows, and of course, the impressive reduction in unemployment that we have seen, and the highest ever trade surplus. These are all foundational for continued investment by the private sector. In Saudi Arabia, ladies and gentlemen, we're fascinated by all things Brazil. Needless to say, we're enthralled by your football, and this goes back many, many generations, from the days of Pelé and the generation of footballers that have followed. But we also appreciate your cuisine. In fact, today, the Brazilian restaurants are popping up across the kingdom, and I can tell you, the most popular restaurants in Riyadh today are Brazilian restaurants. Your music, the Amazon, and everything about the Amazon River and the Amazon region. Meanwhile, Brazil recently has developed an interest in the kingdom. In part, this is due, of course, to the strong Arab heritage and influence in your country, where the Arab community extends, to my knowledge, to more than 12 million people of Arab descent. And His Excellency, the Vice President, was joking that his name, Alkeman, may be from an Arab origin, given that his ancestors are Spanish. And of course, we know the Arabs had significant influence in Spain. But more recently, Vision 2030 and the rapid economic development and transformative vision taking place in Saudi Arabia has also attracted a lot of attention in Brazil. Going back to football, I think our participation in the World Cup in Qatar last year, and in particular, our win against Argentina, I understand has gotten us even a little more closer together. Ladies and gentlemen, more seriously, I'm pleased to report to our Brazilian friends that Saudi Arabia too, just like Brazil, is doing extremely well. Since we launched Vision 2030 7 years ago, you will be happy to know that our GDP has risen by 66% in the 7 years since. Our FDI flows have quadrupled, and last year we became the fastest growing economy in the G20. Our strong credit rating has been raised, and our unemployment also has dropped from 13 to 8%, the lowest in a decade, just like Brazil. This did not happen in a vacuum, but is the result of the clear and inspirational leadership of His Royal Highness Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. By sustained regulatory and judicial reforms and forward-looking investments that are taking place in the kingdom, which you will be hearing about throughout the day. At this moment in time, Brazilian companies have the chance to capitalize on the immense opportunities that we are creating in Saudi Arabia, as well as creating internationally. Together, we can complement and leverage each other's strengths. And our extended visit this week to your country is a testament to our desire to make up for lost time and our belief in the extent of our mutual joint potential. And this partnership is not just important to our two nations, but for what it can mean for some of the key issues the world is facing, and His Excellency the Mayor referred to them. And I want to highlight two key examples in my remarks. First, climate change. Brazil's long-term objective is to meet net zero emissions by 2050 and reduce carbon emissions by 50%, and is set to launch a green transition plan worth hundreds of billions of dollars, which was addressed today by the Financial Times article just this morning. Similarly, the kingdom will achieve net zero carbon emissions by 2060, which is very challenging for Saudi Arabia, given the fact that we are a major producer of hydrocarbon, a very industrialized country, and we don't have the blessings of the Amazon to absorb our carbon emissions, which you have. But nonetheless, we are emissions. We've already demonstrated our leadership through multiple projects which can be replicated here in Brazil. One of them, as an example, is the world's largest green hydrogen project being built in NEOM, in a partnership between NEOM, Aquapower, our leading green energy company, which is with us today, worth more than $10 billion. This project has been financed, under construction, and will be the world's first large green energy project that we hope, as I mentioned, to replicate here in Brazil. We also launched the Saudi and Middle East green initiatives to increase renewables, to increase the circular economy, carbon circular economy, but also to plant 50 billion trees, 10 in the Middle East, 10 billion of which will be in Saudi Arabia. The kingdom is also leapfrogging in our automobile sector into full commitment to EV production, and we will be producing 500,000 units a year of EVs that, of course, will be requiring a massive investment in EV batteries. And critical materials are, of course, key components for EV manufacturing, and we believe Brazil and Saudi Arabia can also leapfrog others by jointly investing to unlock these materials. So this morning, I want to acknowledge what has been making the news the last few days. Manara Minerals, a joint venture between Ma'aden and the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Saudi Arabia, PIF, announced just last week that they are investing in Vale's energy transition metals business. And I am pleased to have the chairman of Vale, Mr. Daniel Steeler, Mr. Gustavo Pimenta, Vale's CFO, and the Chief Investment Officer of Manara Minerals, Mr. Tarmo Heijensen, with us to exchange letters of commitment regarding this JV later on this morning. Secondly, our partnership can play an important role in enhancing an issue also addressed by their excellencies ahead of me, which is food security, where global concerns have arisen recently as a result of the continued conflict in Ukraine. The Kingdom is working to strengthen our food security and attract investors in the Kingdom in that value chain, while seeking to make the Kingdom a hub not only for us, but for the region, to provide food security for a region that needs it very much. It is therefore reassuring that the Saudi Agriculture and Livestock Company, SALIC, is here with us today. SALIC is certainly no stranger to your country, having invested here for a long time, and they are among the top three. Your country is among three producers and exporters globally. And we can help you, of course, grow the sector by not only investing in investments like SALIC is doing, like Al-Rajhi International will be announcing today with 3 separate JVs with Brazilian companies, but also by integrating what the Kingdom can do as a supplier of critical inputs into food security, which is fertilizers. The Kingdom being one of the world's largest producers of fertilizers, linking that supply chain of fertilizers into your food production and agriculture. And ladies and gentlemen, to enable what I just mentioned, we obviously need a strong transport and logistics sector. Given Brazil's vast territory and economic scale, that need applies also here to ensure the smooth running of global supply chains, particularly for commodities and your exports to the rest of the world, given your significant exports. Infrastructure enhancements will significantly lower Brazil's logistic costs, so there is clearly room for joint investments here. In addition to these global trends, we also see opportunities in key structures of both of our economies. Tourism, including ecotourism and entertainment, are all promising markets, and we realize the leadership that Brazil has globally as a destination for ecotourism, and this is right at the heart of our tourism strategy in Saudi Arabia, where we intend to attract 100 million visitors by 2030 into the Kingdoms, capitalizing on our unique offering, ecotourism being one of them, our several UNESCO cultural heritage sites that reveal to the world the Kingdom and the Arabian Peninsula as the cradle of civilizations, cradle of religions, and the heritage and culture that is so unique to the Middle East. And that's why we have also invested in unprecedented giga projects in tourism, like the Red Sea Project, Dir'iyah Gate, Giddiya, that have already attracted substantial investments from Brazil. I am very glad last night having discussions with some of the leaders here to learn that Cidade Matarazzo Group will be looking to explore opportunities to invest in tourism and real estate in Saudi Arabia, as well as in the F&B market, while we also marked last year Fasano Hotel concluding an MOU to invest in 1 or 2 projects in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and we believe many more will be coming as we offer you an outlet for the excellence that you have demonstrated in this sector. Let me also mention that Saudi Arabia is almost certain, we are very confident that we will be hosting Expo 2030 and we are very optimistic that Brazil will be supporting us not only in the voting in the BIE in November when that takes place, but I think more importantly in being a partner in bringing an expo to the world that has not been seen, that demonstrates Saudi-Brazilian leadership in technology, sustainability, inclusiveness, and some of the issues that unite us. And despite the kingdom's global leadership when it comes to petrochemicals, we're also very impressed by Brazil's petrochemicals and conversion industries, being number 6 globally, and we believe the kingdom can help you deploy that technology by investing in kingdom, but also Saudi investors co-investing here in Brazil, especially given what you do in bio feedstock into chemicals and accessing the large and growing markets of Latin America. What I have mentioned here are just a few of the many sectors where we see exciting and large potential. But our interest and support extends to the entire set of opportunities for large, middle, and small companies, certainly for innovative startups and established companies across all value chains and in sectors such as pharma, biotech, agri-tech, fintech, and aerospace, and we will be visiting the impressive partner that has been created through public-private partnership here in Brazil, Embraer, later on this week. It is also worth mentioning that the importance of collaboration will give great opportunities for Brazil's financial sector to also participate in financing over $3.3 trillion of investments that are taking place in the next decades or so in Saudi Arabia. So before I conclude, let me extend an invitation to all leading Brazilian businesses present here, and I assure you we have the highest respect and admiration for each and every one of your enterprises to be our partners, to be part of an exciting journey that I tried to outline. You can partake in the investment opportunities that I mentioned across all sectors to the scale of $3.3 trillion I mentioned. And not only address Saudi Arabia and the GCC, which is an integrated market, but as mentioned by their excellencies ahead of me, by a large market in MENA region of 500 million inhabitants, of $5 trillion in size, led by Saudi Arabia, $1 trillion economy already growing at a very rapid rate. And given what I mentioned earlier about our unrealized joint potential, let me leave you with a final challenge. As the Global South continues to rise, coupled with Brazil's and Saudi Arabia's shared value and aligned strategic interest and our respective leadership in our region, as well as a strong private sector that I told you how much we respect, why can't we become a top 5 investor in each other's respective economy? I believe we can, I believe we should, and I believe we must. This is our mission here today. This is the objective of each member of the Saudi delegation from the public and private sector, and this is the mandate we have from our leadership back home with this historic mission that we are undertaking. So in closing, allow me once again to express my heartfelt gratitude to our generous host for bringing us together, to His Excellency, the Vice President, for gracing the event, and I know he had to travel from Brasilia just for this and go back after he finished, and he's under time pressure, and to the Governor and the Mayor for extending great hospitality to us since we landed. And I very much look forward to great results from this gathering, ladies and gentlemen, today and the rest of the week. Obrigado. Thank you very much.
Neste momento, ouviremos.
Now we are going to hear from Mr. Tarcísio de Freitas, the governor of the state of São Paulo. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to greet our Vice President and Minister of State Development, Industry, Commerce and Services, Mr. Geraldo Alckmin. Thank you for coming back to your home state. I also would like to greet the Minister of Investment from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Khalid Al Fayed. Thank you once again for being with us. I remember when we met in Davos in the World Economic Forum, when we analyzed the possibility of bringing you to the state of São Paulo. And now I am very happy to see this idea becoming a reality with such an important delegation. I also like to greet Mr. Faisal Gulan, the Ambassador for Saudi Arabia in Brazil, our great mayor, Mr. Ricardo Nunes, Mr. Robson Bragas, the President of the Brazilian Confederation of Industry, and Mr. Josué Gomes da Silva, the President of Fiesp, Mr. Jorge Viana, the President of Apex, and the official and business delegation from Saudi Arabia, the President and representatives of trade unions, businessmen, and ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be part of the Saudi-Brazil Investment Forum to report a little bit of what had happened in Brazil in the previous years. Brazil is undergoing deep reforms. I could mention a few. We have had a labor reform, a pension reform, an Economic Freedom Act, the Central Bank Autonomy Act, the Basic Sanitation Act, and the Gas Act, a Cabotage Act, and it would be very difficult for me to list all the transformations that have taken place in the last few years. Transformations that change the investment ecosystem and that tackle the roots of our low economic growth and that certainly prepare Brazil for a leap that will be perceived in the coming years. We are creating the foundations so Brazil can become a safe place for investments. And currently, we are discussing the one reform that is missing, which is the tax reform, that is going to simplify our system. And I'm certain that it will be very helpful to anyone who wishes to invest in the country. So we have created the environment that certainly will allow us to sustainably grow in the coming years. If we think about the state of São Paulo, in the past few months, the state has grown 2.3%. Our GDP has grown 2.3% in the past few months in relation to the previous years. We have had a record opening of new companies with great job creations. 240,000 new jobs were created in a state that has a very strong agricultural sector, a very strong industrial sector, and a very strong service sector that have been driving this growth. A state that represents pretty much a third of Brazilian GDP and houses 22% of the Brazilian population. And we are ready to cooperate with Saudi Arabia in all sectors. I could mention energy security, for example. Our state is a leader in ethanol, a Brazilian creation. And from ethanol, we can develop a number of different possibilities. Ethanol can provide us with fertilizers that are so needed for ensuring food security. Ethanol can provide us with biogas. Ethanol can provide us with green hydrogen, and ethanol that can provide us with sustainable aviation fuel. We have several products that come from the sugarcane cycle, a major example of circular economy. and products that can make the state of São Paulo and Brazil into leaders into the energy transition process. Very soon, in partnership with the University of São Paulo, we will be opening the first reformator in Brazil that will transform ethanol into hydrogen, and we are going to be driving around the university campus in vehicles that are moved with hydrogen produced in Brazil from the Brazilian ethanol. When it comes to food security, I don't have to mention that Brazil is the largest exporter of halal meat for the Arabic world. We are very strong in animal protein products, and this is true for the state of São Paulo as well. We are very strong in animal protein, in sugarcane, coffee beans, and we are strong in a number of different products. We have more than 200 products generated for an agribusiness that is high in technology, and especially an agribusiness that I think we can be proud to have the most sustainable agribusiness in the planet, which is the benchmark for the world, that allows us to conciliate production and preservation. The state of São Paulo is one of the few states that were actually able to grow its reserves. We also have a very strong industrial sector that allows for the cooperation in chemical, petrochemical industries, in pharmaceutical industries, and in defense. I could mention Embraer, for example, as a major reference. Embraer buying aircrafts and communication devices, and that today, together with the University of São Paulo and the State University of Campinas, is leading research in air mobility for the future. So we are going to advance even more when it comes to biofuels and when it comes to reducing emissions and in the development of new vehicles. Embraer, which is a reason of pride for the state of São Paulo and Brazil. In the state of São Paulo, we have also launched a very robust investment partnership program with the private sector. Our investment partnership program in the state of São Paulo that has a number of projects to offer. Projects in all the different sectors of infrastructure, energy projects, basic sanitation projects, because we do have a major challenge in that sector, and we understand that basic sanitation will be a great area for investments. It's a transformative sector, it generates positive externalities, and I'm certain there will be a great flow of investments in the coming years in the state that will anticipate the targets for providing universal basic sanitation services to the population. We are bringing investments through public-private partnerships for highways, and also in the railroad system. We are going to recover that in the state as well. Investments in the social area, making partners between the public and private sector in education and housing. And if we were to combine all the investments that will be offered to the private initiative and projects that are being well structured, because throughout the year, Brazil has learned how to develop projects. Brazil has learned how to deal with the perceived risk by investors. We know how to deal with the demand risk and the exchange rate risk. Today, we have projects that have a liquidity reserve and projects that will ensure a return over the investments. And I'm certain that these projects will all be very successful once they reach the market, and certainly will bring to the state of São Paulo 200 billion reals in new investments in the coming years. So we'll have beats happening in the end of 2023, beginning of 2024, 2025, and 26. And we are going to bring an unprecedented amount of investments to the state of São Paulo in all areas of the infrastructure sector. So this is another extremely relevant aspect of cooperation that should be highlighted. We also have a huge potential for tourism. We have whatever you wish for. We have tourism for all tastes and flavors because we carry all landscapes. We have the coast, we have the rainforest, we have rivers, and we have cities that are specialized in water parks. We have the southwest of the state, we have the north west of the state, we have an immense variety of options to explore ecotourism. Ecotourism in the state, with investments from the private sector, will provide expressive returns in an industry that is sustainable, in an industry that generates income, and that has all the right elements to become a very strong industry in the state of São Paulo. And in the coming years, we are also receiving unprecedented investments in real estate. We are talking about the reorganization of urban areas, especially in the downtown area of São Paulo, replacing old buildings for new ones, with investments in housing projects, and with the revamping of the downtown areas. This means that we have huge investment opportunities here. So that means that we have huge opportunities for partnerships. And it's interesting to see a country that is a leader in Americas to become a partner of a country that is also a leader in the Middle East. We see this partnership as being very beneficial for both countries, and we want for this first mission to establish strong bonds and long-lasting bonds between both countries. We would love to see Saudi Arabia with an office in the state of São Paulo for prospecting new investments. And soon, we would like to be present in Saudi Arabia with a business mission so our businessmen and women can also identify the opportunities for new business in the region. Welcome once again, and I wish you all a very successful forum. And let's build a long story, a long history of cooperation and creation of bonds. Thank you very much.
At this time, we'd like to call upon the Vice President of the Republic and the State or Cabinet Minister for Development, Industry, Trade and Services to voice his remarks. Good morning, one and all. I'd like to extend my greetings to my counterpart and Minister for Investments of Saudi Arabia, Minister Khalif Al-Falih, the distinguished governor of the state of São Paulo, Tarcísio Freitas, the mayor, Tarcísio Nunes, as well as our host at this Brazil-Saudi Arabia Investment Forum, Mr. Josué Gomes da Silva. Greetings likewise to the Saudi ambassador to Brazil, Faisal Olan, Mr. Robson Andrade, the chairperson of Brazil's Industry Confederation, who adds so much luster to this event, Senator Viana, the chairperson of Brazil's Export and Investment Promotion Agency, APEX. Greetings likewise to other attending advisors. Greetings likewise to Mr. Tahdo Khaizi, representing Mainara Minerals, and through whom I'd like to extend my greetings to all members of the Saudi delegation. Greetings to Daniel Taylor, representing the Vale Mining Company, through whom I'd like to extend my greeting to all members of the Brazilian business community. Friends, it gives me great pleasure to join you in this meeting today. Minister Khalid Al-Falih has stated that Brazil and São Paulo, when it comes to the economy, São Paulo is the beating heart of the Brazilian economy. But it's also not just Brazilian, it's also Arabic in nature, in that the Arabs have a strong presence, not only in Brazil, but particularly here in our state of São Paulo. So you can feel pretty comfortable and very much at home while in São Paulo, Mr. Minister. I have no doubt whatsoever that this forum will yield substantial opportunities for mutual investments on both sides, as well as partnerships, and will help us ensure greater economic complementarity on both sides, thereby creating more with stability and with a strong sense of sustainability. Inclusive development means that we are able to uplift the poorest segments of the population so that they can have a better standard of living. We still have about 30 million people in extreme poverty in this country, and we are working hard to improve their standards of living. Another key factor is development with sustainability and predictability. Brazil is growing. The GDP is currently growing above forecasts. Unemployment has gone down. The Brazilian real has been appreciated. The stock exchange market has gone up. But all of these signs should actually encourage us to engage in even more structuring reforms while seeking greater economic efficiency. May I also highlight the recently passed tax reform passed at the lower house of parliament to be reviewed and examined by the upper house, the Senate. It will ultimately encourage the Brazilian industrial activity. As you know, that is a key factor. Robson, Josue, it will also help lower the cost of doing business in Brazil, and it will totally relieve the tax burden that would otherwise apply to investments in Brazil and exports from Brazil. The tax reform will certainly make a difference. The other reform is the tax, or rather the fiscal framework, which will ensure fiscal guarantee regarding the debt to GDP ratio, which will remain stable and as of next year is likely to go down, therefore leading us to incur primary surpluses in our debt to GDP ratio. And the other anchor factor is development with or coupled with sustainability. We are proud to state for the record that the deforestation rate in the Amazonian region in the first half of 2023 has gone down by more than 50, and that is 50%. Brazil is keenly committed to fighting climate change and therefore ensure actual preservation of the world's largest tropical rainforest, i.e. the Amazon forest, and therefore engage in the climate and energy transition. A number of investments and partnership opportunities emerge in this agenda. The Saudi minister highlighted the petrochemical sector as well as the energy sector. He also referred to EVs or automobiles. Actually, we plan to have multiple technological routes in place in Brazil. Ethanol fuel, which was also mentioned by Governor Tarcísio, hybrid vehicles powered by ethanol fuel and electricity as well. Actually, Brazil has a substantial deposits of lithium, and just last Friday in the Vitória port out of Espírito Santo along the coastline of Brazil, we exported the first consignment of zero carbon green lithium. We have also taken a second step, which is lithium carbonate byproducts, and we have before us the challenge of taking the most important step from now on, which is producing lithium-based cells and lithium-based batteries to power EVs or electrical vehicles. Countless technological routes have been emphasized earlier, including the SAF or Sustainable Aviation Fuel. Brazil has all it takes to perform a leading role in SAF, Sustainable Aviation Fuel production. Food security is yet another important agenda, and again, economic complementarity leaps to the eye between our two leaders, or two leading countries, Brazil in South America and Saudi Arabia in the Middle East. Fertilizers are yet another important item. There can be no agriculture without fertilizers. Saudi Arabia in this regard is, of course, an important, extremely important producer and exporter of fertilizer, Brazil being one of its destination markets. We can certainly work to further boost this ongoing and very good partnership. It means the article, the definite article, but my father used to say that it's not Alckmin, it's really Alckmin, because in Minas Gerais, usually, if you pronounce a word that's with an emphasis on the first syllable, you don't win the election. You have to place the emphasis on the last syllable if you're serious about winning the elections. Enjoy the day, gentlemen, ladies. Thank you.
We would now like to invite for his remarks on opportunities for investment in Saudi Arabia, Mr. Abdul Rahman Bakir, the director for the international office at MISA.
Bom dia, Excelência, senhoras e senhores.
Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed businessmen, guests, and friends. My name is Abdallah Makir, and I'm very happy to be here today. I'm here representing the Minister of Investments for Americas. Don't judge my Portuguese, please. I'm just half Brazilian because my wife is actually Brazilian. My wife opened the doors to Brazil for me, presenting your beautiful culture and the endless opportunities that you offer. Opportunities that up until that moment hadn't been shown to me. So now I have the possibility of exploring them with you and exploring the relationship between Saudi Arabia and Brazil that used to be mainly focused on trade. But today, with the presence of Your Excellence, Mr. Falech, and Your Excellence, the Vice President, Mr. Alckmin, Your Excellence, the Governor, Tarcísio de Freitas, and with the presence of the main Brazilian and Saudi Arabian companies, this is a historical moment for strengthening the connection and the bilateral relations for investments between Saudi Arabia and Brazil. I will do a quick presentation on Invest Saudi, the national brand for attracting and promoting investments in Saudi Arabia. With Vision 2030, we want to turn the Saudi Arabia into the fifth largest global economy. Changes that Vision 2030 has anticipated establishes ambitious targets for the kingdom based on three pillars: a vibrant society, a thriving economy, and an ambitious nation. Our economy is thriving, with GDPs reaching $1.1 trillion this year, with a forecast of reaching $1.6 trillion by 2030. We are a strong and resilient G20 economy, number one in our populational growth rate. But now, let's talk about why are companies choosing Saudi Arabia. A few examples. The reform journey. 30% of the population is under 30 years of age. Expansion of quality of life. A strategic global location. Let's talk about the 15 most successful sectors. For example, in the first quarter of this year alone, we have had more than 300 investment licenses in the manufacturing sector, more than 100 in technology, 70 in transportation and storage. Another reason why companies are choosing Saudi Arabia is our strategic location. The kingdom offers easy access to 3 continents in a matter of hours. All that combined by an interconnected logistic network in the kingdom with more than 28 airports spread all over the country, 14 of which are international airports. Let's talk about some of our major projects. The Line. The Line is a cognitive city. With 170 square kilometers with mountains. The Red Sea project. I know Brazilians love the Maldives, and I'm certain that you will love even more the Red Sea. Gdynia will be a unique location in scales never seen before. Amala, focusing on luxury tourism to attract visitors at the coast of the Red Sea. Alula, the first UNESCO heritage site in Saudi Arabia, an ancient town with 52 hectares. This is simply a magical place. All you have to do is come and see it for yourself. Now let's talk about how we can support investors. Vision 2030 uses a national investment strategy, a strategy that was launched by Prince Hamad Salman based on the 4 pillars for opportunities of investment, investors, funding, and competitiveness. That takes me to the end of my presentation. I hope to see all of you in Saudi Arabia very soon, and please come and visit us. Thank you very much and all the best. We would like to thank Mr. Bakir for his remarks. And now we are going to start the official pictures of the MOUs between the Minister of Investment from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, MISA, and Brazilian companies and entities. We would like to kindly ask for the representatives of the companies to join us on stage through the staircase on the right side and to step off the stage on the left so we can take the official pictures. We would like to invite the president of Fiesp, Mr. Josué Gomes da Silva, the Minister of Investments for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Mr. Falir, and Mr. Abdul Majid Al Badrani from the Ministry of Investments for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
The memorandum signed between Fiesp and MISA has as its purpose to promote the institutional relationship of both entities. We invite the representative of Vale and Manara Minerals. The MOU has as its purpose to establish the commitment of acquiring 10% of the operation of basic metals from Vale by Manara Minerals. We invite the representative of OEC and MISA. We invite representative of CATS 3D and MISA. We also invite the representative from Atlas Agro and MISA. We invite the representative of Novonor and MISA. We invite a representative of Luft and MISA. We invite the representative from Cidade Matarazzo and MISA. We invite the representatives of Tropical and MISA. We invite the representative of the Wish Group and MISA. We invite the representatives of VEGI and MISA. We also invite the representative of the Commercial Association from the Federal District and the Federation of Saudi Chambers. We invite the representative of Oncoclínicas and Mashafi Holding Group. We invite the representatives of Avibras and Scopa Defense Trading. We invite the representative of Taurus and also Scopa Defense Trading. We invite the representatives of Cicibas, Trade and Industry Investment Center Brazil, and Thica Business Service. We invite representative of Cicibras, Trade and Industry Investment Center Brazil, and Ahad Business Service. We invite representatives of Agromandova and Al Hahe International for Investment. We invite representatives of Mapito Beef and Al Khari International for Investment. We also invite representatives of Agri Brazil and Al Khari International for Investment. We invite representatives of OEC and AHQ. We also invite representative of Avionics and AHQ. We invite representatives of CSD and AHQ. We invite representative of OEC, Al Hole.
Thank you. Gentlemen. Next picture. Next one, please.
Tirando agora, só um minutinho.
Thank you. Next picture, please.
Por ali, senhor.
Next one for pictures.
Over.
Agradecemos então a presença das autoridades na abertura deste fórum e solicitamos a todos que permaneçam em seus lugares.
We thank the presence of all authorities in the opening of this forum. We request you to stay in your seats because soon we will continue our event. Once again, we thank for the presence of authorities and we ask you to stay in your seats while the authorities leave the theater. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to continue with the next panels. We ask you to kindly stay in your seats.
We would like to kindly ask you to please remain seated while the authorities leave. Our next panel will discuss investments on the special economic zones for Saudi Arabia. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, we would like to ask you to please remain seated while the authorities leave the building. We need to allow the authorities to leave the room so we can continue with the panels. We'll continue with the panel, which will discuss investments in Saudi Arabia's special economic zones. Once again, we would like to inform those who are in the theater and just outside in the foyer. We will continue with our agenda with a discussion panel on investments in Saudi Arabia's special economic zones.
your seat as the next panel is about to start. Senhoras e senhores, por
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats so we can proceed with the next panel. Continuing with our agenda, we will start a panel on investments in Saudi Arabia's special economic zones. We would like to invite on stage Mr. Mashed Al-Tajmand, General Director for SEC Global Business Partner and Exile.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, these are indeed exhilarating times for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the Republic Federal of Brazil. There is a momentous movement going on today, ignited by our Vision 2030, which has impacted greatly our international initiatives and which is resembled by today's investment forum. This effort has accumulated and pushed by the announcement and the launches of 5 new special economic zones, which present a unique opportunity and a highly diversified, differentiated investment opportunities with a very positive outlook. Now, without further ado, we're going to watch a short video of these five newly launched SEZs.
At the crossroads of East and West, connecting 3 continents. The country is rapidly transforming, buoyed by a surging economy. On its doorstep is a superhighway of trade, creating a key international hub for logistics, manufacturing, and services. And now, with the launch of 4 new special economic zones, created with international investors in mind, it's easier than ever before to take advantage of all the kingdom has to offer. King Abdullah Economic City Special Economic Zone is the premier destination for advanced manufacturing and logistics. Set in a prime location on the Red Sea, it offers unrivaled access to global trade routes through Saudi Arabia's newest full-service commercial ports. Ras Al Khair Special Economic Zone as a hub for the maritime industry, offering opportunities across shipbuilding and repair, offshore drilling, and the entirety of the maritime sector value chains. This is a fully integrated maritime ecosystem with a strong base of existing investors. Jazan Special Economic Zone on the Red Sea connects investors to a new platform for trade with the fast-growing markets in Africa. Located adjacent to one of the Middle East's largest ports for export of goods and import of manufacturing materials. Jazan also has easy access to the kingdom's natural and industrial resources. Embrace our digital future through the new Cloud Computing Special Economic Zone located at King Abdulaziz City for Science and Technology, a platform for emerging and disruptive technologies to flourish. and for investors to capitalize on. Together, these strategically located SEZs present an unparalleled opportunity for foreign investors looking to grow stronger and more resilient supply chains, backed by world-class hard infrastructure and a young and skilled workforce. Business-friendly regulations, streamlined investment procedures, and attractive economic incentives. There has never been a better time to be part of the Kingdom's economic success story. 4 new zones, 4 new global hubs, 4 game-changing opportunities. Welcome to Saudi Arabia's special economic zones, unique gateways to growth.
I hate videos. Oi, tudo bem? I hate videos.
Powerhouse located at the middle of the Middle East. The numbers that Saudi Arabia has achieved in its non-oil-based economy diversification, and it's increased by creating newly investment opportunities to attract FDIs. The number of increase and effective as well for efficient regulations, regulatory systems, legislative process that has been enhanced and redeveloped to cope with the needs of our international investors and as well for the local investor. All of this has resulted remarkably in an excellent achievement and success for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. From a G20 perspective, Saudi Arabia is by far the fastest growing economy, where we have provided a very positive growth rate as well for a diversified and differentiated investment environment. All are associated with a highly stable financial system and regulatory policy for its fiscal policy as well. The Kingdom's strategic location and financial stability, as well for its cost-efficient structure, provides a very unique investment capitalizing on the strategic location, on the advanced leading financial sector, on a very competitive rate of returns on investment, as well for the abundance of capable workforce, expanding and high standards lifestyle, as well for rigorous reforms that are associated and resulted in the production of highly differentiated investment opportunities. We work closely with the Ministry of Investment under the leadership of His Excellency, the Minister Khalid Al-Falih, and to develop the framework as well for the incentive regulatory system. The Ministry, as part of supporting the robust investment community, has developed the appropriate legislative tools that allows us to react to market demand, investment demands when it comes into incentive development. As of late May 2023, Saudi Arabia has launched new 5 special economical zones. 2 of them are located at the west coast, 1 is at the east coast, and 2 at the middle region in the capital, Riyadh. The first special economical zone, and by far the largest, is King Abdullah Economical City, which is located at the west coast. The zone size is 60 square kilometers with the focus of automobile, consumer goods, ICT, pharmaceuticals, medtech, as well for logistics. The incentives were basically derived and developed by the market need and demand from the international investors, which falls under reducing or tax reduction, taking down the corporate tax to 5%, the waiving of withholding tax, custom duties, and value-added tax, as well relaxing and supporting relaxing the laws of Saudization for the special economical zone. Bear in mind that each special economical zone, depends on the sectors, has been developed to meet the investor expectations. The second special economic zone is Ras Al Khair, which is located at the eastern coast. Ras Al Khair is a comprehensive and a fully integrated offshore cluster to supply an end-to-end maritime manufacturing services, which include shipbuilding as well for rig platforms building and covering both operations and maintenance for that. As King Abdullah Economical City, the incentive scheme for Ras Al Khair is a 5% reduction in, or a 5% withhold corporate income tax. the reduction and the waiving of withholding, custom, and value added, as well relaxing the labor law for Saudization. The third special economical zone, and bear in mind that the previous two as well for this one, they are all manufacturing and industry-based focused. So Jazan, it's our primary and downstream industries. There is a special economical zone of the size of 24.6 square kilometers, focusing on food processing, metal conversion, and logistics. Cloud computing special economical zone is something that we have developed specifically with its incentive to meet the cloud service needs, and it goes to the taxation and compliance with the OECD, as well for relaxing the double taxation issues. Another factor which is quite important for cloud computing is the energy, which Saudi Arabia offers it on a very competitive price schema, as well for the assurance of the redundancy and the production of energy in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Our fifth and final special economical zone is the special integrated logistical zone located in Riyadh, next to King Khalid International Airport, focusing on consumer products, computer parts, pharmaceutical, nutritional, medical supplies, aerospace spare parts, luxury goods, jewelry, and precious metals. Now, this is another example of how we are customizing a bespoke incentive scheme according to the industry need. Logistics need was, since it's quite very price sensitive, it was a 0% of a corporate income tax, the VAT exemptions and withholding tax exemptions, and relaxing the Saudization laws. For our special economical zone, it is quite located at the largest sized market in the Middle East, which comprises of which gives a 7.6% of an annual growth. And it is directly adjacent to a logistical hub, which gives it the uniqueness and the ease of access to international markets. This would conclude our presentation, and thank you very much for your time and patience.
We would like to thank Mr. Majed Al-Tyson, and he will be back soon for the continuity of our agenda. We would like to inform the guests who are outside to please enter the theater, because we do have some empty seats available. Right now, we are going to start the panel on Expo 2030 Riyadh. We would like to invite Dr. Abdul Mohsen Alias, Royal Commission of Riyadh City.
Gentlemen, it gives me a great pleasure to present to you Riyadh Expo 2030. Before I start, please, I would like to thank the Vice President of Brazil for his kind wishes for Riyadh to host the Riyadh Expo. Please join me in saluting him. I will not take any credit of that, since I am presenting after his kind announcement. Riyadh Expo is supported by the highest level of the Saudi leadership. His Royal Highness, the Crown Prince, Prime Minister, and the Chairman of the Riyadh Expo 2030 Supreme Committee has committed to the Secretary General of the BIE, the international entity responsible for the World Expo, to work in partnership with every participating country to elevate and maximize their presence at the Riyadh Expo. 2030 is a threshold moment for the international community in general and for Saudi Arabia in specific. In 2030, the international community will witness the conclusion of the United Nations SDGs and collectively plan the road ahead. In 2030, we will celebrate the 100-year anniversary of the establishment of the BIE. For Saudi Arabia, 2030, we will celebrate the achievement of a 14 years journey. We call it Saudi Vision 2030. Before we deep dive into the specifics of the Riyadh Expo project, let me start with the host country and the host city. Saudi Arabia is strategically located to connect Asia, Africa, and Europe. Historically, it's where the Islamic Empire has started, and today it leverages its position to enhance international trade and investment. We strategize and move today in Saudi Arabia based on an ambitious plan. We call it Saudi Vision 2030. Saudi Vision 2030 doesn't only aim at transforming Saudi Arabia economically, but also socially based on specific KPIs and clear targets. In 2022, Saudi's GDP hit $1.1 trillion, making it one of the fastest growing economies in the world. The Saudi Public Investment Fund is worth today $650 billion, investing in innovations both home and abroad. The Saudi Public Investment Fund is also investing in giga and mega projects, as I will be explaining later. And it's worth noting that women in Saudi Arabia today represent 37% of the workforce. When it comes to Riyadh, we are a city on a fast pace towards realizing our future goal. Today, Riyadh City is the 46th largest city economy, and we're aiming for Riyadh City to be within the top 20 largest city economies by 2030. We have in Riyadh today 7.5 million people, and we're anticipating in Riyadh to have 12 plus million people by 2030. When it comes to the national GDP contribution, Riyadh contributes $249 billion, and we're anticipating for Riyadh to contribute $650 billion by 2030. I will pause for a second and present to you a short video, introductory video on Riyadh City.
Riyadh, a remarkable capital, yet so much potential. However, maps can only set simple icons with a shadow, but they don't capture the depth of the heritage.
Ladies and gentlemen, as you saw in
Conforme você...
we are launching major mega and giga projects all over Saudi Arabia, many of which will be, and already some are in Riyadh City. I will briefly mention 3 of these projects in the Riyadh area. The Diriyah has a historical significance for all Saudis since it's the birthplace of the first Saudi state. Al-Diriyah Gate projects include Al Tarif Historical Districts, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and Al-Diriyah Gate offers exceptional investment opportunities when it comes to retail, dining, and hospitality. King Salman Park will be the green heart of Riyadh City as the largest urban park in the world. It will be almost 10 times larger than Libra Puera Park in Sao Paulo. The project was launched in 2019 and it is expected to be completed by 2025. It will include the National Theatre and the Royal Art Complex. Riyadh Art is one of the largest public arts programs in the world. It aims at transforming Riyadh City into an art gallery without walls by the installation of 1,000 art objects by local and international artists. So when it comes to the expo, our expo will run from the first day of October 2030 until the last day of March 2031. Riyadh Expo will have the highest number of expected participants at 226 participants, including 196 countries. Among our competitors, we have the largest number of visitors at 41 million expected visits. And among our competitors, we have the biggest site at 6 million square meters. Ladies and gentlemen, the theme is the heart and soul of every expo. We have chosen a theme that is important for the long-term future of our planet. Together for a foresighted tomorrow, how we can work together as an international community, hand by hand, to envision and imagine our future utilizing science and technology. We have chosen 3 equally important sub-themes: a different tomorrow, what are the major transformations and disruptions we as an international community will be facing, climate actions focus on tackling climate change and scaling sustainable solutions, and prosperity for all focuses on providing opportunities for more people. We are organizing the Riyadh Expo Master Plan based on 3 important principles. 1 country, 1 pavilion. So no matter how big or small the country is, each will have an address around the loop of the world. And then we have the North-South collaboration. So the loop of the world represents the equator going around the Earth. And countries' pavilions will be located flexibly based on their time zone or general longitude. So you will have countries from the north next to countries from the south. This is an important concept for Saudi Arabia because we have been playing a role and we want to continue to play that role of enhancing north-south collaboration. And then we have vibrant neighborhoods, so there will be many public spaces between the pavilions, and these areas will be utilized for P2B, G2G, food and cultural festivals in the expo. So for the first time in history, the expo will coincide with the holy month of Ramadan. It will also coincide with the Christmas and the Chinese New Year. And this, again, is an important subject for Saudi Arabia because we want to encourage dialogue between different cultures and backgrounds. Saudi Arabia's socio-economic transformation under Vision 2030 is unleashing great investment opportunities, and we are committed under the Riyadh Expo to create platforms and events to encourage and to facilitate investments. When it comes to sustainability, it is an issue we take with no short turns are allowed. And the Saudi Green Initiative was mentioned earlier by His Excellency, the Saudi Minister of Investments. How is this being translated into the Riyadh Expo? It's based on the same mindset and philosophy. For the Riyadh Expo, we're planning to have it as the first mega project to go beyond net zero. We are hopeful at the conclusion for the international community's support for Saudi Arabia and for Riyadh to host the Expo in 2030. We are confident that we will take the Expo to the next level and for our Expo to have an everlasting impact. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Agradecemos então ao senhor.
We thank Mr. Abdul Lucens, and we'll start the panel, Opportunities of Investment in Brazil. We would like to invite Ana Paula Repesa, Business Director of Apex Brazil. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. It's a great pleasure to be here and talk about investment opportunities in Brazil. As I'm one of those among you and lunch, I promise I'll be as brief as possible, aiming at some aspects that were not mentioned before by our authorities during the opening panels. Just to add a context, we are the Brazil's official agency for foreign investment attraction and Brazil export promotion. We have been around for 25 years and we are related to the Minister of Business and Foreign Affairs in Brazil. Our main purpose is to contribute for the development in Brazil through more exportations and also the attraction of foreign investments, mainly focusing in the supply chain and strategic sectors, as we are going to soon see. As I've mentioned, we in the press, the FMI readjusted our growth projection for 2023. We'll be close to 3% of growth up to the end of the year, with future projections of more growth. We are the 5th destination for foreign investment with a total of 86 billion in 2022, 7th population in the world. We have the largest tropical forest in the world that covers 58% of our national territory. And besides that, we have 85% of renewable sources. Brazil today has the energy matrix that is the cleanest in the world. And also bringing here our position in the classification of top 20 host economies, we are just behind the US, China, Singapore, and Hong Kong, that in 2022. Well, aligned with the new industrialization policy of the Ministry of Industry and Trade, and also with this theme of energy transition that is embedded in the government of Brazil, Apex listed 4 important areas to attract foreign investments. As you are going to see, most of these areas are here as investment priorities for Saudi Arabia, as it was mentioned by the Ministry of Investment from Saudi Arabia. We have as our major priorities the attraction for sectors related to energy transition, so photovoltaic energy, wind energy, and hydrogen in all its categories and all colors, shades in fact. Not as much as Saudi Arabia, but Brazil has also oil reserves that are quite meaningful and that foster innovation, research, and implementation of a strong hydrogen chain. In relation to agribusiness, and we mentioned that during the speech of Vice President Mr. Geraldo Alckmin, we have a potential for fertilizers, biofuel, machines, and food and beverages, processed food, keeping in mind that Brazil is a country with a huge potential for consumption. Our level of unemployment has been reduced This week, we had the announcement that our unemployment level was the lowest in the last 11 years, and that for sure is translated into more consumption, and obviously it's translated in more consumption of food and beverages as a whole by the Brazilian population. We also have a focus that is pretty strong in research and development, especially for all areas of technology related to clean energy, energy transition, startups in the health area, fintechs, and agri-tech. So that is an entire ecosystem here in Brazil for startups and also for the generation of new business. As we are going to see, we have a very important number of unicorns. We are the country that has more unicorns in Latin America, and that shows a great potential of growth in such segment. And in relation to infrastructure, as it was mentioned by the Vice President, Mr. Geraldo Alckmin, we are going to have the announcement of our new plan to speed up growth. And we are going to have infrastructure constructions that are going to be priority for the government. Ports, railways, sanitation, and also smart cities. Also mentioned as priorities for the Saudi Arabia government, as said before. Here we have the potential of Brazil as an investment destination for renewable energy. Brazil is the country that receives the most investment for renewable energies, and we call that, and some people who study the subject, power shore. Countries are investing in Brazil to assure access to clean energy sources and reduce the carbon footprint in the supply chain. And a very important point in relation to hydrogen. Here we have a graph that shows the current consumption of hydrogen in the world and what we foresee for 2050. As you can see, up to 2050, the forecast is that the consumption of hydrogen will grow fivefold, and Brazil has the condition to supply hydrogen to the world, confirming this potential as a pretty profitable investment. And to face this potential and serve the demand, recently we had the Brazilian plan of hydrogen. That's a picture that compares in major pillars Brazil with Argentina, Chile, Colombia, and Uruguay in relation to different aspects in the generation and distribution of green hydrogen. We have regulatory affairs that in our case are well addressed or better addressed than our neighbors, making access easier in this segment. In relation to agribusiness, this table shows how Brazil is competitive, not only in relation of being the largest world producer, but also the largest exporters in different things. We have soy, coffee, orange juice, sugar, poultry, beef. This position is due to R&D, research and new technologies in the sectors, allowing us to have more production in relation to crop, larger production without deforestation. In relation to proteins, we have the entire generation in a more productive way, considering animal feed and the livestock strategy and everything. Brazil is a potence for that, and it needs investment because the scale will grow and more resources are necessary for this segment. About unicorns, as I've mentioned before, we have currently 30 unicorns that, besides the entire ecosystem of innovation and technology that we have available here in Brazil, the fact that Brazil is a major domestic market and a very important consumption market for these unicorns to have appeared and managed to grow and escalate. Because in fact, They had an internal market that was quite demanding in order to test products and solutions before becoming international and receive international investment.
So this is truly a country that has a large number of unicorns. And regarding infrastructure projects, like I mentioned before, I'm not going to cover all projects in detail, but we do have a set of projects that will be part of this new PAC that will be announced in the coming weeks. As you can see, we have projects related to airports, ports, highways, railways, hydric infrastructure, projects connected to the environment, mining, agriculture, and supplies, and some subnational products, some state-based projects that also require this type of infrastructure. So it is a very broad portfolio of projects in a country that has a history or that starts to present a history of tax and budget stability, that the tax reform that is currently being discussed in Congress shows us that the macroeconomic foundations of Brazil tend to be much more solid and stable in the coming years. Since these are long-term projects, it is obvious that we need to have this perspective for the Brazilian economy in the long term to ensure the profitability of these projects. So we have all these opportunities, and how can APEX work in order to facilitate the opportunities for international investors? We have pretty much 6 different lines of work that allow for international investors to access these opportunities in the Brazilian market. Let's remember that Brazil is a large country, and obviously investments, they do happen at a subnational level, either at the state or municipal levels. So it is important to have a federal entity coordinating these opportunities together with states and municipalities, so the decision-making process for investors and the investment itself can take place in the best possible way. So with work with providing market and industry information, we follow the whole decision-making process behind the investment. Of course, investments can vary between 3 to 7 years until they actually take place. And we follow investors throughout the process, because during this time period, new questions might arise or new needs might come at all government levels, and our team is ready to support investors in the process. We work a lot organizing networking events, especially abroad or at the source of the investments, bringing foreign investors close to potential projects in Brazil. So after that initial connection, we can start the negotiation process. And of course, we support and foster these partnerships because, of course, an investment decision, regardless of its size, like I said, it doesn't happen only through APEX, or APEX is not going to be the only entity as part of this process. We're going to have other entities at the federal, state, and municipal levels participating. So our role as APEX is consolidating this partnership so the investments can take place. We also help in the soft landing process, and that, of course, has to do how can I open a company, what is the best state, what about the legislation, how can I bring expats to the country to allow for the operations to actually begin. And finally, we also provide assistance with the site location. So what is the best location for my industry to be established? I remember that some years ago we had foreign investors who wanted to invest in wind power energy in the Northeast. And we conducted a study on the wind speed in the different states from the Northeast region. So the investors, of course, considering other information, but they needed this piece of information before deciding the state where they would be investing. So our team from Apex Brazil also plays this role. And last but not least, I would like to invite you to one of our events. Every year we have a Brazil Investment Forum, which is a great forum for attracting investments to the country. So we spend 2 days presenting a number of different content on Brazil and the Brazilian business environment and business opportunities with speakers from Brazil and from all over the world. This year the event will take place in the city of Brasilia in November 7th and 8th, and very soon we will start sending the invitations, and it will be a pleasure to welcome you to our event so we can share the knowledge with you, as well as organize bilateral meetings for clarifying specific questions. Thank you very much, and good afternoon. We would like to say thank you to Ms. Ana Paula Repesa, and now continuing with our agenda, we are going to start a panel on the investment landscape in the state of São Paulo. We would like to invite Mr. Rui Gomes, the president at Invest São Paulo, and Mr. Edgar Benozati, the president of the São Paulo Partnership Company, CPP. Right now, we are going to hear by Mr. Edgar Benozati, the president of the São Paulo Company for Partnerships, CPP. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for staying with us. I will try to be as brief as possible. I know we are a little bit late. As our governor previously mentioned, the project pipeline in the state of São Paulo is quite robust. We have almost 30 projects between public and private partnerships, concession projects being structured by our company. And I will highlight some of the main projects to introduce to you because of time constraints. But nevertheless, I would like to invite you to learn more about our pipeline. And please know we have open doors to establish a communication. Having open doors to communicate with the markets is essential, not just because it sounds good in an event like this, but because we truly believe that this makes our projects better and more resilient. So, first on urban mobility. I don't know if I have a clicker or if someone is changing the slides for me. Next slide, please. So, speaking of urban mobility first, we have a project called Intercity Trains. That's much easier. So, again, on urban mobility, this is a topic that's quite clear to everyone, but considering the topic that was presented throughout the day today, when we talk about sustainability and decarbonization of the economy and 21st century cities, urban mobility plays an essential role. And the state of São Paulo and the government of the state of São Paulo has a lot of clarity on the topic, and our projects are a testimony of that. So here we have the ICT North section train between the cities of São Paulo and Campinas. This will be the first medium speed train operating in Brazil, and it will connect São Paulo with the metropolitan area of Campinas and Jundiaí, offering 3 options: an express service, another service serving 17 stations, and a mobility with line 7 in the São Paulo train system. This will be the first project to receive, to be in an auction. It will happen in November, and this of course creates a lot of expectation because it creates and opens these opportunities for train projects between cities. This is another important project regarding mobility, which are lines 11, 12, and 13 for the São Paulo train system. These lines exist today. They are operated by the CPTM, a public company, and the idea is to establish a project to improve the lines, build new stations, and basically improve this service that is offered by more than 1 million people a day. And now, still on urban mobility, we have the subway lines. Lines 1, 2, 3, 15 already exist, and lines 19 and 20 are going to be built. This is a study that we are doing in partnership with the World Bank on together with IFC, and we're studying what are the possible alternatives to generate the investment capacity that is needed for the construction of these 2 new greenfield lines. Subway lines are very capital intensive, but we understand that we can find alternatives by using the existing assets in some sort of possible combination. Speaking of highways, this is a sector that is very consolidated in the state of São Paulo. We have a portfolio with 7 projects today. It was created in 1998 with the first highway concessions, but for this presentation, we have a project that has a very specific item, which is a Santos Guarujá underwater tunnel. From the regulatory perspective, is not so challenging, but it is very challenging from the engineering perspective, and also because of an discussion at the federal level, and we expect that this project, just like the others that I mentioned in terms of sustainability, can be an alternative for the use of small boats that people use for making this crossing. That is not only dangerous, but also very little efficient from the environmental perspective. So it's a tunnel that will have a passage for pedestrians, bicycles, and of course using the tunnel infrastructure for urban mobility vehicles in the future. And in conclusion, something that brings more attention, we have water, energy, and sanitation. We have 2 privatizations. These are the 2 privatizations that are currently being analyzed. The first one is by EMAE, which is a power company in the state of São Paulo. And it's a project that we are very much interested in developing, and we see a lot of potential for it. EMAE is a power generation company with some power assets, with a plant located close to the coast of São Paulo. It has a relative generation capacity, but more than that, it can be used the waters from 2 water reservoirs in the state, and we are going to do solar generation in the 2 water reservoirs, which becomes a very interesting asset because it can be a very important clean power generator close to a very important industrial hub. So our idea is to do this auction until the end of the year. It's one of our main projects to be developed in 2023. And in conclusion, we have the privatization project for Sabesp, or the São Paulo Sanitation Company. This is an extremely interesting project, and the governor has been highlighting the importance of this project for the past few months. It's currently being studied. We are concluding the initial assessment to understand if the privatization makes sense, and if it makes sense, what is the idea model. This will be defined by the government, but this company is the largest sanitation companies in the Americas. It's the 11th company in size in the world, with a huge potential to grow, and privatization could bring benefits to the population. The idea is that we could have a tariff reduction, we could generate resources to be allocated in other areas, and especially we would be able to bring people that are not included in the sanitation plan. When we're talking about the universalization of access, many times we exclude rural areas, and the idea is to have a robust plan for this privatization that could really generate benefits for all inhabitants in the state of São Paulo, and not just those that are initially part of the universalization of sanitation plan. I try to be brief, but present a little bit of everything. But if I would highlight just one thing about this presentation is that the state of São Paulo has a very robust project pipeline, and we are open for conversations with everyone. Opportunities exist in all sectors, and opportunities exist for operators, investors, and funders. Thank you very much. And now we'd like to give the floor to Rui Gomes, the president of Invest SP. Good morning, everyone. This is an excellent opportunity to start a dialogue with the Saudi business community. Despite the fact that we are at lunchtime, I would like to start by thanking Fiesp for the invitation to be here so we could talk a little bit about Invest São Paulo and bring opportunities and investors closer together. First, I would like to greet all the Saudi authorities and the Brazilian authorities present at the audience today and greet everyone who is at this great event. Because I understand that this is a starting point for a very successful partnership so we can bring Saudi investments to São Paulo. First, I will give you a quick explanation on Invest São Paulo. We are an investment promotion agency, or an IPA, which is an agency connected to the Economic Development Department in the state of São Paulo. So it's an agency connected to the Economic Development Department in São Paulo, led by Secretary Eduardo Lima. And I'll explain a little bit of what we do. We have 3 scopes at Invest São Paulo. One that we call a more traditional scope, from an IPA, and it's important for you to know that this work is completely free. That's the good news of the day. Every time an investor identifies a project in the state of São Paulo, Invest São Paulo, our agency, through an engagement term, we can sign this with investors, and we have a team of experts in different sectors to establish this initial communication with investors so they can mature their investment decision. And again, we have different agendas that are led by our experts. So we have topics connected to the environment, to infrastructure, to the tax framework that is applicable to that specific project, and all the discussions related to the projects are done with our experts that provide free advices to investors. And we also do a site location recommendation to investors. We provide this advisory work until the decision, throughout the decision-making process. We follow the execution, what we call an aftercare, and eventual expansions. So this is a long-term partnership that is established between investors and Invest São Paulo, because we are a one-stop shop. We follow the investment throughout its whole cycle, starting with the investor until the project is in operation. To bring a little bit of color to what I'm trying to say today, we have a portfolio of projects with 145 projects being executed that, if they actually become operational, would correspond to almost 60 billion reais in investment, quite a significant amount. We work in multiple sectors. Here I just highlighted some of the sectors where we have a track record. And it's important because of this, the Saudi delegation also has businessmen and investors from different sectors. So Invest São Paulo is fully ready to provide you with high-level advice. I will try to sell our work a little bit more. In 2018, Invest São Paulo was chosen as the best IPA in the world by the Financial Times. And our goal is to keep this bar quite high, providing investors with high-level advices. More recently, with the management, or in the administration of Governor Tarcísio de Freitas, we received a different scope from the Economic Development Department, another initiative. These are strategic tracks for Invest São Paulo to work in consulting with the different state departments and with the governor. So we have received some tracks And we are working on developing the intelligence work for the recommendations. The first one that was mentioned today, something that the governor also highlighted, has to do with energy transition.
Energy transition is a global discussion. Governor mentioned that in São Paulo we have a project that is quite promising, showing feasibility to convert or transform ethanol into hydrogen. So hydrogen with the logic of exportation and also the logic to feed the São Paulo industry. We are evaluating how São Paulo will be the protagonist of the country when attracting investments. We have the possibility of ethanol as well as other renewable energy sources. We have a clean matrix of energy generation. More than 60% comes from renewable sources. This is a trend here in São Paulo, and we have articulated with all actors involved inside and outside the government. And we are pretty interested to get to know and learn with the Saudi experience. Another track that is pretty important for us is economy, circular economy and smart cities. Circular economy brought different projects to waste to energy projects. Our ambition goes further than that. We try to search for the major models that we could incorporate to São Paulo. I know 2 smart cities that are references, one in Abu Dhabi, the other in Singapore. So we are trying to get to know these models so we can replicate winning ideas here in São Paulo. 5G and the expansion of 5G in the rural area of the state of São Paulo, it's uneven, and we have to be the advocates of the antenna spreading process. This track talks to connectivity and also smart cities. The last track is the most challenging one, the semiconductors. São Paulo, well, that's a discussion that includes the entire world. It's a very important issue in geopolitics. But we capture, at least we try to capture one link of this supply chain. And we want to have a solar energy that is clean and sustainable. Very important in this global world searching for sustainability. We have larger demand for solar panels. That's the initial step for you to evolve to the technology of semiconductors. The last scope is the market sounding and road shows for 2 departments of the state of São Paulo. Environment, logistics, and PPI. We articulate with stakeholders, operators, private customers, law firms, financial market, so we can search for dialogues to build robust projects that are attractive to the private player. As it was mentioned and also mentioned by the governor, we have 17 projects with investments that totalize 200 million reais. Mentioning here, Invest São Paulo is present all over the world. We have here in Shanghai, our Asia hub, Munich, our office, the Europe hub, Dubai, that serves the entire Middle East. And these offices are for the internationalization of the city of São Paulo, the state of São Paulo, and match the state of São Paulo and the markets where we are. I'm going to take the advantage that's a QR code that has further information about Invest São Paulo. If you want to get to know, we have an entire team from Invest São Paulo, and my representative that is located in Dubai and serves the entire Middle East and Saudi Arabia needs. You can get further information through this QR code. Now a brief video so you get to know my representative in Dubai. I would like to thank you all for the opportunity, and I'm available in case you wish to leverage partnerships in the state of São Paulo. Thank you very much.
Good morning, distinguished guests. My name is Sylvia Pearson, and I have the honor of representing the Invest São Paulo Middle Eastern office. Our objective is to establish and maintain seamless trade investment channels between our state of São Paulo and the Middle East, with a specific emphasis on our valued partnership with Saudi Arabia. I stand here today to assure our commitment to being your dependable local support system concerning other endeavors involving São Paulo State. Our team is dedicated to assisting you in finding that right business partner, identifying investment opportunities, and connecting you with reliable trade counterparts. We promise to provide you with vital information on conducting business with the states, ensuring smooth and successful operations. Both São Paulo and Saudi Arabia offer numerous opportunities across many diverse sectors. You can rely on us to be your local guides, supporting you every step of the way. We are fully committed to serving your needs and ensuring the success of your ventures. Please, let's meet when you come back to the Middle East. Thank you and enjoy the event.
We would like to thank the participation of Rui Gomes and Edgar Benorzait, and please take your seats. Now we will start the panel Cross-Border Investments for the Saudi Arabia and Brazilian companies. We invite as moderator Jackson Schneider, President of the Superior Board of Foreign Trade of Fiesp, and as speakers Abdul Majid Al Hussein, Executive Director of SABIC, Assad Al Jamouai, Director of GSCRI, Fernando Queiroz, CEO of Minerva, Mauricio Cruz Lopes, CEO of OAC, and André Scaff, CEO of Sete Partners. Now, the floor is yours, Mr. Jackson Schneider. Good morning, good afternoon. We are in a very interesting panel. We are going to hear not only presentations, formal and theoretical presentations about the possibility of having a relationship and also concrete cases of relationships between Saudi Arabia and Brazil. And we call to our conversation companies that have effective examples of participation. Saudi Arabia had the chance to mention in a meeting that we have before this one that I've visited Saudi Arabia many times in the last 10 years. And it's amazing that after the project Vision 2030, the change and the development of the country. not only the development in relation to what happens inside Saudi Arabia, but also the development of Saudi Arabia and its relationships with other countries. And that's what we are going to hear here. I will hand the floor to each of our participants and ask them about these experiences. I'm going to start with my dear colleague Abdul Majid, who's the executive with more than 17 years of experiences in business management inside SABIC, and now he is the director for Americas in the area of oil and chemistry. And we would like to hear from you about SABIC, and if you could explain a little bit to the Brazilian audience who's here and also who are listening to us through the broadcast, what SABIC is and the importance of Brazil in the plans of the company. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you so much for the question. SABIC is ranked one of the world's largest chemical company. Works with customers in a variety of industries. Established in 1976 with a headquarters in Saudi Arabia and Riyadh. We have 31,000 employees across 50 countries, in Americas, Europe, Middle East, Asia Pacific, including Brazil. We support our customers to stay ahead of market trends in many applications and solutions, including industry and constructions, agri-nutrients, building and construction, agri-nutrients, automotive, healthcare segments, as well as packaging. We foster innovation, evidenced by more than 10,000 patents and pending applications with innovation hubs across 5 key geographical areas.
What is the perspective of the relationship between Saudi Arabia and Brazil, and how SABIC can foster that? What is the expectations of SABIC in relation to this partnership, Brazil and Saudi Arabia?
Brazil is a very important market for Saudi Arabia. We have been operating a plant 60 miles north of Sao Paulo in Campinas. We have since 2008, we have 175 employees. We produce compounding resin. That compounding resin go for a very important application in building and construction, in automotive, in appliances and electronics. These kind of industries are very prominent for Brazil market, as well as supporting Brazil with agri-nutrients business from import material from KSA.
Very interesting.
Aligned with that, and taking a look in a Brazilian company, OEC has a tradition of relationship with Saudi Arabia, and we have Mauricio. He's the CEO of the company, and he has a familiar relationship with Saudi Arabia. So what's your experience? What can you share with us about this experience with Saudi Arabia? Thank you for your question. I visited Saudi Arabia a month ago, a little bit more than a month ago. And set of meetings, including with SABIC. The results were amazing, excellent, in fact. And what I can share with you is the experience of new businesses with a new country. The company has, in its 79 years of history, great experience. We've been working with 38 other countries, and that is also a barrier to enter the country, a lot of bureaucracy, red tapes, and in Saudi Arabia, we found the opposite of that. It was easy to get to the country, show our interest in the areas we act in the infrastructure market, in order to understand how to open a company, how to build an office, hire people, and how to have the first strategic partnerships. Well, it was easy, and I was amazed by that. The country shows not only a leadership position in the region, in the sectors in which it acts, but also a leadership relation to the attraction of new companies and businesses. We were flabbergasted in the positive sense, and we have some appointments with 3 companies besides the MISA for developing new businesses. And we also have an understanding that this is going to be quite productive and positive, mainly because my perception is that the culture, the Saudi culture, the Arabic culture is pretty close to the Brazilian culture, probably due to the presence throughout many decades of Saudi Arabians here. And the spirit of friendship that exists between the countries. Not only on the business side, we were welcomed all over the country. The relationship we have, not only due to soccer, as the minister mentioned, but also this friendship attitude between the countries. We have a major opportunity to Brazil and also Saudi Arabia to develop new businesses and new opportunities. Not only in what comes to our mind at first, the trade of commodities or even industrialized products. Well, that's what comes to our mind when we talk about commercial trade with trade opportunities with other countries. But we have many other things, not only engineering and construction, but also many other services, tourism, diverse services. The country is with its door open to Brazil, and we should deal not only welcoming them, but also having the chance to develop new business. In that sense of business opportunities and investments, we have Fernando Queiroz. He's from the Minerva Group, and he has a mature business in Saudi Arabia. He invests in health in the health sector since 1917. And I ask you, Fernando, how was the decision to invest in Saudi Arabia? How are they developing, and what would be the next steps of Minerva in Saudi Arabia? Well, thank you, Jackson. We started our business in Saudi Arabia in 1997, always transactional, but in 2015, we had the chance to analyze for the first time an investment, a strategic investment, in fact, a joint strategic investment. And we had 2 essential points in this investment. The first one is the addition of natural resources that both countries have. Saudi Arabia is one of the major points. Its major point is oil, and Brazil, water. And that's what we can add to each other, packing water in different ways through orange juice or a piece of chicken or beef. Well, and add to each other. In 2016, when we invested that, we had the chance to get to know Vision 2030. And this is an amazing plan about the ambitions that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has for 2030. I suggest all investors or Brazilian investors or international investors to dive deep and understand how this plan was prepared and where it stands, because the implementation part was pretty effective, and the plan from our Saudi friends, it's ahead of schedule. And we have opportunities with that. I would say that to work in Saudi Arabia, first of all, we have to be clear with our business plan to be effective in the implementation.
And the second thing that I think is essential is that the world is more dynamic. It is becoming more fast changing. And because of that, inside a partnership, we always need to reassess our routes. And from 2015 until recent years, one of the topics that has gained more momentum was sustainability, especially related to carbon emissions. We participated on the first auction that was sponsored by the PIF, and we were a great seller of carbon credits on that occasion. And I believe that this brings us a great opportunity to work together, Saudi Arabia and Brazil. Brazil, considering all the potential we have for generating carbon credits, whether from reforestation or renewable energies or best practices in agriculture and livestock, which bring us with an opportunity. And Saudi Arabia will always have a fossil fuel base, and it proposes of becoming a more sustainable country with a reduction in emissions. And part of that will happen through offsetting. So I believe that this is a major opportunity for looking into the future together. And finally, how we can work from now on. Besides carbon, considering the products or the food that we produce, which of course are part of the food security agenda, working together, for example, in distribution, in developing new techniques and new ways to improve our trading so we can improve and foster these partnerships. And in our last meeting, we were saying it's not by chance that the predominant color between both flags is actually green. Green is the most important color for both of our flags. So, as Mauricio mentioned, definitely that creates a very strong sense of identity on our culture, on how we do business, on the importance of trust and transparency, which is, of course, the foundation for doing business in Saudi Arabia. Thank you, Fernando. Now I'm going to ask my friend Assad Al-Jamani. I apologize if I have mispronounced your name, but he's the General Director for GSCRI, which is an initiative to bring resilience to the global supply chains from the Ministry of Development from the Saudi Arabia Kingdom. I would like to hear from you, what is Saudi Arabia's perspective on the development of the global supply chain? Because of course, this is a topic of interest in Brazil. We are exporters and we participate in some of these global supply chains ourselves. And perhaps you could tell us a little bit as well on the goals behind this initiative, considering the development of global supply chains as a whole.
Thank you, Jackson. Hello, everyone, and good afternoon. My name is Asad. I'm a senior advisor to His Excellency Minister Khalid Al-Falih, Minister of Investment. I'm also the managing director of the Global Supply Chain Resilience Initiative, GSRI, GSCRI, as Jackson just mentioned. So it's a very important and critical initiative that the Saudi government has decided to design and launch. It happened 9 months ago with the objective of what Jackson mentioned in his introduction, is to solve for a common problem that the global economies are facing today. So everyone in this room had to experience COVID-19. They had to deal with it, with the intricacies and complexities of not having products available on the shelf, whether be it pharmaceutical, medicine, or personal protective equipment, masks, sanitizers, what have you. And then the world learned a hard lesson that concentrated manufacturing cannot exist anymore. It cannot stand as a safe bet for the world to continue to rely on. So we have, economic superpowers like China, who is pretty much manufacturing everything. And during COVID-19, when the shock of supply chains went across, we felt how difficult it is not to be self-sustained and self-sufficient. So when we analyzed this during 2019, the government of Saudi Arabia has decided to put together a program just like all the other nations of the world and to solve for this common problem. This came about as GSRI, the Global Supply Chain Resilience Initiative, which you asked me about. The objective was to add to the resilience of the global supply chain by mobilizing the competitive advantages that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia can offer the global supply chain scene. So the kingdom has abundance of energy, we have natural resources, we have a logistical location, we have a very youth nation, we have as well a very ripe and advanced infrastructure, be it digital or physical. 13% of the global trade comes through the Red Sea on the West Coast. All these economic advantages calls for a very strong business case to put together a program and to try to attract manufacturing capabilities to exploit and take advantage of these endowments that I just described. So the Crown Prince, back in October 2022, launched this program. So it's been in action for the last 9 months. The objective is to attract FDI, foreign direct investment, in manufacturing capabilities to create industries that can make use of the kingdom's competitive advantage to solve for the greater good of the global supply chain resilience. One example that I can relate to, I think my friend Andre Skaf at the end of the panel right there, he was in October in Saudi Arabia. We were discussing advanced technology around eVTOL electric propulsion systems. So there's a Brazilian startup company called Ocelot. I think they're with us here in the room. And they presented to us an idea of sustainability, because these are one of the pillars that the program is trying to solve for, which is sustainability. And that's the disruption that is happening from sustainability, because there's a concerted effort to move away from conventional energy, the fossil fuel polluting energy, to renewable energy. And that came about the propulsion idea. They presented to us this genuine idea of making a propulsion electric system of the eVTOL, the electric vertical takeoff and landing helicopter. And for my program that I'm managing, it was a direct fit that we decided to sign an MOU with them. And their relationship with Embraer, the great Brazilian aviation company, as well makes for a perfect growth opportunity, since Embraer now is heavily pursuing the sustainable aviation business, and they come about to serve that mandate. So this tri-relationship that came between the program, this startup company, and Embraer, being a very traditional and strong Brazilian flagship company, brought to us a very good example that is something we would look into. So it's just an open call to all those great companies in the room. Come and explore with us what the GSRI can do. As you heard His Excellency Engineer Al-Falih earlier this morning, he said it's about complementarity. We cannot be everything to everyone. Brazil has a lot to offer to the global supply chain. Saudi Arabia has a lot to offer to the global supply chain. And I think together we can have a bigger and a stronger value proposition to solve for a common problem. So I think the GSRI program stands as a very strong proposition for Brazilian companies to come and explore our mandate. You can check hashtag GSCRI, look at the mandate, come and approach us at the Ministry of Investment, look at what do we have to offer from incentives perspective. We do promise incentives in terms of tax cuts, tariff reductions, subsidies of electricity. Brazil is famous for hydroelectricity, which is very cheap. We have conventional cheap electricity that goes up to 4.8 cents per kilowatt hour and can go all the way down to 3.2 2 cent per kilowatt hour. Again, very strong value proposition when it comes to energy and operation costs. So all this bundled together in this very promising program is to attract and mutually solve for a common problem. So it's an open invitation to come and explore, and we can develop opportunities together.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing all these opportunities with us. Mudando pouquinho.
All right, switching gears a little bit back to Portuguese. Andre has a vast experience. I'm not going to ask you how many times you have been to Saudi Arabia. I'm sure there have been a lot of important visits in this journey of bringing both countries closer together and bringing investments from here to there and vice versa. And I think today, as CEO from Sete Partners, a company that coordinates this project, perhaps you could share a little bit with us about your experience and your perceptions on how the Saudi investments are welcomed here and how Brazilian investments are received there. Perhaps you could share a little bit of your experience. Well, thank you, Jackson, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to try to be brief because I believe we are at lunchtime and everybody is a little bit hungry. But Sete Partners is an advisory company. We have a very strong focus in the Chinese market and in the Middle East, especially Saudi Arabia. Speaking of China, we have almost 10 companies working directly with us. Some we are investors, we're partners in some of their operations. And for some years, we have established this relationship with Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is a sea of opportunities. Many times when you arrive in a sea of opportunities like this, perhaps you don't have the experience to go fishing. You know, how can I catch a fish in such a large ocean? And in Saudi Arabia, things are a little bit different. They are very prepared to assist you in that. We have a whole generation of young Saudi leaders that were trained in the best universities of the world. And they have bought the idea of transforming their countries. And we are experiencing just that, a country that will continue to lead and grow its leadership position in the Middle East and eventually become one of the main economies in the world. We saw that earlier on with the investment commitments of trillions of dollars in all sectors. So when we receive a mission or a delegation like this, a lot of people expect, oh, a bunch of rich people is coming to invest in my company. The cost of capital in Brazil is expensive. This is a unique opportunity. But for me, the great opportunity for me is the opposite. Brazilian companies being able to become international companies and perhaps start off in a country that has its doors open to do business with us. They provide us with all the incredible conditions: cheap credit, speed, no red tape. They help you find local partners. So all the elements are in place to make that happen. Fernando is here. We have known each other for a long time. And when I had the first conversations with the president of SALIC in Saudi Arabia, in Riyadh, and I asked, what about your experience? And he said, we love this experience of working with Minerva. It's a top success. We are studying new investments. And recently we saw the announcement of a new investment on BRF here in Brazil. So they want to be part of global companies, leaders in their sectors that can grow globally together with them. But at the same time, they are betting on creating a well-structured supply chain and bring technology for that. And like my friend Assad has said, he only forgot about one thing. The day that we talked, we said, okay, let's sign an MOU with an investment program of $40 million. That was 20 days of negotiation, and we had to create a business plan from scratch in order to support that. And it was not just our team that was working, or the Ocelot. Misa's team, there was a large team working with us, and we would talk at 3 a.m. at Saudi Arabia, and he was there, and I was wondering, and they never sleep. So just like we recently had in an experience together with Mauricio and Hector, the president of Novo Nor and OEC, we had a very busy agenda of 4 or 5 days together. And since then, everything that we have planned is happening at a great speed. And we saw today that almost 25 MOUs were being signed. We had the happiness of having 16 or 17 of those MOUs participated or coming through our company, and Brazilians are eager to understand how to do that. Today and this morning, we had almost 750 people. This room accommodates 470. We had people in the 14th floor and then outside, almost 70 people sitting and watching. So I believe that this is an important marriage, so to speak, for both economies. Brazilians, as mentioned before, we have a lot of similarities. I come from an Arabic family, so when I got there, people asked me, let's eat Arabic food. I said, no, this is what I eat at home, so problem solved. So I believe that companies need to be aware of that. They are very serious in what they do. They are truly committed to the work that they do, and they're ready to do it. And it's not easy to deliver a project because, again, we are talking about 2030. 2030, talking about investing trillions of dollars by 2030, you need the whole world supporting this country reach this vision. So if I can encourage you to do one thing, go and visit Saudi Arabia. Go there and understand what's happening to this country, because as soon as you get back, I'm sure you'll be ready to do business with them. Thank you very much. Thank you, Assad, and thank you, all my fellow speakers, for your help, for working together, and thank you for being in Brazil, supporting us. Thank you, Andre, for your comments. And I think that somehow, if I were to summarize our discussion, everything that we've heard on stage today, all the comments were very positive in entering a new stage of development between Saudi Arabia and Brazil. Today we have a trade flow of $8 billion, and I'm certain that with not much, in 5 years, we can more than double that number. Because again, we have a number of different projects being established in order to integrate both economies. Not only Saudi investments in the country, but also Brazilian investments in Saudi Arabia. I just have 2 or 3 comments to conclude this. Because when we talk about Saudi Arabia, we talk about a local market of 40 million people. But if you think about the Gulf, the market is much larger. And we think about the halal market for some products, we're talking about trillions of dollars in market size. For the halal market, we have halal just for food. No, we have cosmetics. We have some pharmaceutical products for the halal market. So this is truly immense. In my previous experience working at Embraer, Saudi Arabia has an essential influence throughout the region, throughout the north of Africa, and this extended portion of the Gulf. So establishing a position in Saudi Arabia means that we'll be selling to Saudi Arabia and exporting to a market of hundreds of millions of consumers. So in conclusion, I would like to thank you all for being with us. Thank you, the audience, for staying with us. And once again, I would like to encourage you to know more Saudi Arabia, visit the country, and do business there. Thank you. We would like to thank all our panelists for their presence, and Fiesp. Yes, an official picture first. Let's take the official picture, please. Fiesp and the Ministry of Investments from Saudi Arabia would like to thank you all for your presence at the Saudi-Brazil Investment Forum. We would like to wish you all a great afternoon.